today we have an Insider's Breakdown, and I am joined with special guests Rushi, Kota, and Aniruhd Pisharody. Did I do it right?
That's good. Yeah.
The Men from Never Have I Ever and so many other TV shows. Guys, we are talking about the biggest hits and the biggest misses in movies for you guys in the last year. Do you have one that really missed?
I think Oppenheimer for me just like really. I know, I'm sorry. I was.
Yeah. I'm out.
Today on Curiosity Storyteller Studio, I'm joined by the men from Netflix hit TV show Never Have I Ever, Rushi, Kota, and Aniruhd Pisharody. Rushi has also acted in numerous TV shows, including his unforgettable stint on Grey's Anatomy and last year's film, Dumb Money. And Aniruhd has co-starred in a plethora of big television shows, including Big Sky and 911. Today we are talking industry trends from the actor's point of view, the landscape post-strike, and we discuss our favorite stories of the year. So storytellers, join us as we welcome to the studio Rushi and Aniruhd. Guys, thank you so much for joining us on Storyteller Studio, this Insider's Breakdown. On this format, we talk about all our favorites across these different forms of storytelling. But I want to give a little more about you guys as storytellers, because you both are writing your own stories, you're creating your own stories, and you were both born in different countries and then grew up since childhood here in the United States. So playing these great roles on a global stage, how did your background, multicultural background, play into how you inform or build characters?
I don't know if I can specify one single element of it, but I do definitely think that because I was born in a different country, and then when you move here, you're kind of just thrown into just life, you become immediately just way more open to experiences that I think a lot of people, even Indian Americans potentially, who were just brought up here in their own community without kind of being stripped away from that, might not have.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I don't know if that's scientifically accurate. I have no idea, but that's just how I feel. I just feel like I'm very, like you were talking about, forgiving and like open to other people's experiences.
Sure.
And there's no level of judgment there. And yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think it has to be scientifically accurate. I think if you've experienced it,
You're right.
then it's real.
It's emotionally accurate.
Yeah, and it's part of your story.
Right.
And we're here to talk about you as a storyteller and what you love and don't like. So I think it's important. I identify personally as a third culture kid, even though I was born here. I spent a lot of time in India growing up and then came back here. I'm first generation American. My parents are from two different cultures in India. And so there's a lot of things as a kid that like identity-wise I couldn't grasp onto. I thought that everyone just didn't know what they were talking about because the answers were always different. But I realized later on that it actually was that the answers were just that confusing even to them coming from different cultures. And I think that for me, that informs the way I build characters. I'm constantly trying to create characters who are learning through their surroundings and who are drawing from different parts of their background to really create understanding with others.
Imperfectly perfect.
Yeah. So I love that. I love that that's part of what you add to each of your stories.
Yeah, I think growing up, coming from India when I was 8 years old and growing up in Queens, I didn't speak any English, and I was, most of my childhood, most of my teenage years, I was pretty confused as to where I fit in and where I belong. And I remember for a long time, I just hated being in my skin. And so I tried to be as American as possible. Or there was a lot of hip hop culture in Queens. And so I was like, all right, I gotta, wear these super loose shirts and super baggy pants and like a fitted hat. And
do we have a picture of that? Can we get a picture of that?
then I like braided my hair at one point. I was
Yes!
like, oh, yeah.
We need a picture of that too.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any pictures out there, but I think like growing up that way and really trying, like at that moment, just stepping outside of my own skin now informs me of like, all right, well, you don't have to see me as what you see me as. I can now step off and to go, do a different accent or really just embrace a different way of life. And that's kind of how I try to approach my characters.
There's something like intriguing about needing to understand how other people live especially when you grow up across multiple cultures. Like you want to understand what it's like to walk in those shoes. And I think that makes really dynamic storytellers because you're constantly thinking about what did that person feel like because you've been in that position. Exactly, because you've been in that position. I love that. I do want to note that Aniruhd has to go to a meeting, so he'll be leaving us early if you see him pop out. But we're going to get right into our first segment, guys. We are talking about the biggest hits and the biggest misses in movies for you guys in the last year. And, we always want to just talk as storytellers and how we loved something and the way it was created or the way it wasn't. And I was telling you guys that I looked up some of the critically acclaimed movies from this year, and a lot of them I hadn't seen. Okay. So have you guys seen the first Slam Dunk? It's a manga adaptation of basketball, guys.
Oh. I've heard of the manga, but I haven't seen it. I don't know they even made a movie about it.
So this is supposed to be this insane manga called The First Slam Dunk. And then they also were talking about Are You There, God? It's Margaret, which is a Judy Blume classic novel that they adapted.
Oh. They did this movie already?
Yes.
Yeah. What?
And we did, exactly. And I watched some of it, and it is like Wes Anderson, but for kids. Like it's a bunch of kids,
all right.
But like the protagonist is like thinking in her head the whole time, and like the way that they've done the shots. Okay, so what were your favorite movies from this year, and which one do you think just completely missed?
I think I know. So my favorite movie of the year was a documentary called Tequila Tiger.
Oh, I saw that one.
I love that.
I mean, it was heart-wrenching,
Oh my God.
emotional, but it was just like this story of determination for this dad who's trying to kind of get justice for his daughter who had been, sexually abused by his
And can I add that I watched that documentary.
Me too.
And the level of insight that this man has, and for someone who's not educated, who's been growing up in the village, and for his deep insight into just life and how profound it is, I was like, man, that is that's a gem. Right
Are
there.
those the kind of stories that you guys are trying to develop within? Like, are they more stories that are culture? Tell us a little bit about what you're working on.
Definitely. So unfortunately, I'm not working on any documentaries right now. But after watching that, I definitely
the hero's journey.
the hero's journey is
Yeah.
definitely important. And there are some projects that I'm like attached to helping develop that do deal with that. But that definitely inspired me. It made me really think about like there's so many stories, even in India, that are just like untouched, and the fact that we can explore that is awesome.
I know, Rushi, we'll get into some of the projects that you're working on. For me, guys, the best movie this year, I'm going to go completely corny. I did not want to see this movie because I was like, they are going to ruin it. It's been too soon. I didn't have the information, but I loved Wonka.
Okay.
And I grew up on Ronald Dahl, and I've been an enormous, I read all his books, and I am an enormous Ronald Dahl fan. And I didn't realize that they put so much magic into this prequel, and they killed it. And when I was sitting in the movie theater, I just remember that, I wish that all movies still had this much magic, you guys.
It's like, that's
I
what you go
wish
to
it
the
had
movies
this
for.
much magic. You know what I mean? We see so many, and there's so many gritty, great stories out there, and I love them all.
Yeah.
But there's something amazing about sitting in a seat and being in another world and watching someone float in the sky, a la Mary Poppins, and you're just like, wow.
I mean, that's the whole point of going to the movies, right? You want to get lost in this magical, fantastical world that they built.
It really, that director absolutely he killed it for me. And he did both the Paddington Bears before Paul King, and the second Paddington Bear Bear was one of those critically acclaimed movies I never
100% on Rotten
watched.
Tomatoes, something like that, right? Which is
Like how? I'm like, all right.
Everyone go watch Paddington Bear.
shameless plug for Paddington.
Yeah,
Love it.
but Paul King is amazing. What about you? Favorite?
Favorite movie? I think it's a toss-up between Barbie and American Fiction.
Okay.
Yeah.
American
Okay.
Fiction.
Yeah, I thought
great.
Barbie was like, oh, it's just so out there and so fun, and it had a commentary about just what it's like for a woman to grow up in the world, and I was like, man, that's really profound. And American Fiction, just for these Black novelists who are how they're still being marginalized, even though they're trying to put out this fantastic novel. They're like, no, we want this other thing instead.
Right.
And so,
And Jeffrey's just such a good human.
Yeah.
You know, as people who work in the industry, I love when a good human gets a great role and just kills it. He's so good. I have to say though, like Barbie wasn't my favorite. And I love Greta and I love Margot and I love Ryan. And I thought the world was awesome.
Yeah.
Like set design, costume design, the world. But then when we got to the end, like I felt like it got a little after school especially.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it was a little bit like I get that we're driving a message home in Barbie, but that's just for me. I think that like watching Gary Whitta, who wrote the Batman movies, and his dialogue on Threads back and forth, he was just debating about Oppenheimer and Barbie was like the highlight of that week of the strike for me. It was just like watching him compare these two movies, and I know our whole industry really geeked out on it.
Yeah.
And for me, like the one that missed. Well, I mean, Barbie didn't necessarily miss for me.
Yeah.
Do you have one that really missed?
I think, I mean, I sat through this whole movie, but Oppenheimer for me just like really. I know. I'm sorry. I was. I was just.
I'm out.
I was like, what are we watching right now? Like, it's just I don't know. It's just like too fast. It was. I was like, all right. Do I have to go read a huge Reddit post after this to find out what happened? Like what's happening?
It's funny because I kind of felt. I mean, I wasn't like disappointed with it, but I was like sitting center row, IMAX. I had like a book. Like I find some random showtime. I'm like, I'm gonna do this. I go in and I just felt like the bomb blast that goes off.
Yeah.
Just kind of felt underwhelming,
Yeah.
And I was sitting there, I was like, "That's it. I mean, this is there's been a build up." Like,
I was reading that he actually wanted a bomb blast like that. And I was like,
no.
To Rushi's point about like Nolan can do no wrong. In my world,
right.
Memento's my one time all favorite movie of all times. But to Rushi's point, like when we talk about these like deep characters, like the guy who created the atomic bomb, like I love when I'm drawn into their why immediately, and this one he didn't do that. So you're trying to figure out like why you are, why is the story important to us? Instead of just being invested in a character. Like Theory of Everything did that. You were just invested in this character.
And I think it was like, for me, it was just too many characters, and it just felt like at some point there were just so many cameos of every single white guy in
Like
Hollywood.
gimmicky a little bit, Like, what are you trying to do here?
Rami Malek was in there.
I mean, everybody was in there. I was like, who are these characters? What am I keeping track of?
But how cool to be Christopher Nolan and be able to get every small role.
Totally.
With an A-list, A-list
This is a phone call. It's like, all right, I'm in. It's amazing.
Will you play the bellboy? Yes, I will. Yes, I will.
How many Oscar-nominated actors are going to be in there?
And I'd be reminisce just to before we go into television shows a little bit. I know. Do you have to run now?
I do have to run.
Oh,
this has been amazing.
Will you come back?
Yes, I will definitely come back.
You'll come back.
I will say my miss of the year, which I'm going to say before I go. Killers of the Flower Moon.
Oh, haven't seen it yet.
I thought it was beautiful, beautifully made, phenomenal, but it's way too long. 2 hours in, you're like, all right, I guess we're coming to the end. No, there's another hour and a half left. And thank you for having me.
We'll have Aniruhd back another time, guys. Thank you for
Would love to.
joining us so
Of course.
much.
Thank you so much,
Talk
guys.
to you soon.
Bye-bye.
This episode was brought to you in partnership with Little Black Tux. Little Black Tux is my go-to when I need a timeless look. Whether I'm speaking on a film panel, walking a red carpet, or need a bold, sophisticated look for a photo shoot, Little Black Tux has me covered. Little Black Tux isn't just a clothing company, they're a company with a story, a strong why. and you know I love a good story. They're breaking boundaries and creating clothing that empowers women with versatile, upscale options. I love my little black tux, and I know you will too. Okay, let's get into television shows.
Okay.
Favorites
Okay.
and least favorites, and why.
Okay.
I'm going to go for Wheel of Time as my favorite. I swear that I'm not as big a fantasy fanatic as I'm coming off as, but for me, a great adaptation of a great, epic like that, there's nothing like it. And we haven't seen one that was really well done for a while. I don't think I've had one that has had deep characters that I couldn't wait to watch every week until Wheel of Time came out since Game of Thrones.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Reacher.
Reacher?
Yeah.
Reacher was one of the critically acclaimed ones.
Yeah, it's dope. I mean, Alan Richardson's Reacher is phenomenal. I love all the characters in it. It's got a good not classic, but it's got a good TV format of really hooking you into this mystery. And it always leaves you with a cliffhanger that keeps you coming back for more.
I love that. So I think that one of my personal baby pet peeves is I love when a television creator or a film creator starts you in the middle of a story and just really pulls you in. So they have your attention or your involvement with that character from the first moment.
Yeah.
And we just watched, you're talking about how Reacher does that so well. We just watched FX's Shogun, a premiere of it. And such a beautiful world. Japanese actors who are now mainstream. Mm-hmm. They all grew up in Japan. Love that. A great piece of history that we haven't really got to see on the big screen a lot. Yeah. And legends speaking in Japanese and telling these stories. But the setup to this show, once it started going, I loved it. The setup was one of those classic story tropes where they take a second to set up the world and what's going on, and I think for today's day and age, the attention span isn't there.
No, not at all. I think if you don't have it in the first 6 seconds, you're lost.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting when I was looking at the critically acclaimed and didn't meet expectation kind of shows for this year. One that came up as didn't meet expectations according to the greater general public was Blackberry. But everyone within our industry can't stop talking about Blackberry. And I think that for our industry, it's super interesting because if you haven't seen it yet, it's done it was done on a lower budget, and it is a limited series, and they shot it so that it looks kind of like the period, like the time period. And they did a lot with a little, but the greater public has chimed in and basically said that's not their favorite.
No, yeah. I think sometimes for the audience, it's, some of these niche stories are not going to hit home with them. I have not seen Blackberry yet, but I definitely want to watch it. But yeah, I think
what do you think of all these stories that are shooting period for period, meaning you feel like you're watching a movie from the 60s or the 80s?
I mean, I guess I'm biased. I guess it depends on if, as people of color, that if we're not in that period, then is Hollywood just going back to a time when things were glorious back then, and that's the stories that they now want to bring up and tell, or is Hollywood doing a better job of diversifying their shows? So I think I'm a little biased on that. But yeah, if there's a way we can all go back in time and live in that glorious time, I'm like, hell yeah, I would love to dress up in a period piece.
Do you see yourself when you used to imagine yourself as characters when you were studying acting or growing into acting? Did you see yourself as Superman, Batman, traditional characters that from old Hollywood that we love. Could you see yourself in those roles, or did you have a hard time seeing yourself in those roles because you weren't represented?
I was having a hard time seeing myself in those roles, and I still do. And I'm like, I don't think there can ever be an Indian superhero if he's not, playing an offshoot of Spider-Man in Mumbai. If I just don't think the world sees it yet.
Yeah, but do you see it?
I mean, I want to see myself in it. Like at home, like, yeah, hell yeah, I see myself in it. But on TV, do I see it? I don't know. Yeah.
That's interesting. Like I always imagined myself as all those characters, and I never thought once about. I definitely was affected when I was a child, and I was acting still, like in terms of roles. I never got those roles because I look the way I do. Yeah. But my self-perception of whether I could be Pippi Longstockings or the girl from Damn Yankees or a girl on Mean Girls, like
that's funny.
That never, for me, I totally could see myself doing it.
Totally. Yeah.
Other people were having an issue seeing
wait,
it,
no way.
but I was like, of course.
The one superhero character I do and always see myself as would be the Flash.
Yeah. Why the Flash?
I don't know, because he's just got this this motor mouth of just speaking without a filter, and he just says all these, all these jokes, and I was like, yeah, I'm fast. I can do that. I can say a lot of sarcastic things, and
I love that. I love that. Okay, so were there any other TV shows that you were just like, this absolutely shouldn't be out there? Let me just see what, besides the critics are talking, or the public is talking about Reservation Dogs.
Okay.
Reacher, your favorite. Invincible, season 2, the animated. You watched it?
Love Invincible, yeah. Love that show.
It was done so well, right? They just, world building.
Yeah, exactly.
World building. It's so cool to watch an animation do so well this year.
And it's so gory and gritty, and it's just, I think that's what's so fun about it. It's just like there's just blood and gore, and it's would we classify that as ultra violence? I don't know, but there's still the hero's journey of this kid who just wants to be accepted by his father and growing into his own. I think that's something that we all can relate with.
Mine surprise for this season, which I did not think I was going to enjoy at all, because I'm not in any way a Godzilla super geek or a Godzilla big fan, was Monarch.
Monarch, okay.
I loved it. What were you going to think
I was going to say, was it Godzilla -1? Is that the Japanese movie?
Yeah, so there's been all kinds of, Legendary has all kinds of iterations of both the King Kong world and the Godzilla world that have come forth. But Apple did a TV show called Monarch that is based on the world, and is kind of like a prequel or a continuation. Again, I'm not a massive Godzilla fan, and if someone had said watch a TV show about Godzilla, I would have been like, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm out. But I'm a super nerd when it comes to content. I love old school stuff, but the monsters just never were my thing growing up. It's never been my thing. And I found myself completely captivated by this world and this idea of this parallel universe where these monarchs or Godzilla-like characters exist.
Mythical creatures.
For me, I used to think growing up that the dinosaurs were all just asleep, in the hills, and that they were gonna come alive any moment, and a dinosaur was just gonna show up.
Just gonna wake up from the grave, and be like, "Hey, here I am," and eat everybody.
That's why I think I like it though, because I'm there's a benefit where it's just reawakening, reawakening these monsters. They also talked about a limited series called Small Light.
Okay, I've not heard about that one.
That was, it's a historical series that they put out. And then Happy Valley, which was a British crime drama.
Okay.
We have to go watch Happy Valley.
There's so many dope British shows that are, I want to catch up on.
The British shows are really having a moment right now.
Yeah.
They're really having a moment. And I can't wait for my next season of Bridgerton to come out. I am a Shonda Rhimes fan. Yes.
She
She speaks to females. Leave it alone. It's so good. Yeah. And then you have that representation within that too, where you get to imagine these characters.
Yeah, exactly. How cool
world.
Is that, Simone Ashley gets to go in there and play a period piece and no one questions it because it's like, it's normal.
I think what Shonda did was beautiful.
Yeah.
And I loved, that's how you and I met. I loved her work on Grace, her work that continues on Grace. Did you see Drops of Gold at all?
I did not.
Okay, we would be remiss not to mention Drops of Gold. You have to check it out. Okay. It is in 3 languages. I believe it's on Apple, right? It's on Apple as well. And it is about the wine world.
Oh.
But it's this really artistic, nerdy look at these individuals who are just, I'm going to make up a word, sensophiles when it comes to wine. And I loved.
That's so great. I was just getting back into wine this past couple of weeks. Usually I'm a tequila guy, but I've been exploring a lot of new wines, and it's been a fun reintroduction to the wine world.
Well, I love like the sensory experience of food and wine, and then to cross that with the storytelling of like a television show and have an audience experience all those different pieces, and then in multiple languages. Yeah. So it's really just like a sensory overload as a show, but there's something really cool and geeky about that. Any others that you were just like not a big
fan of? I think Loki season 2 comes to mind. I was a huge fan of Loki season 1, and then season 2 I was just having a tough time understanding of like what timeline they're in. And that for me felt like a miss.
Okay, we're gonna move on to our next segment. It is page turners and letdowns in books. So let's just stick to page turners today, because I know that there was a strike, and so there was some reading this year. But if you're like me, you read a lot of scripts. Yes. We did pick up some pretty great novels this year. I think that the one standout for me that we are really into was a book called Yellowface. And one of our friends, Linda, she turned me on to this book by this Chinese writer. And it's essentially a story about it's a story of where a white writer pretends to be Asian and then becomes published.
Oh my God.
And then, what she deals with on the other side of it. And I just think it's a really cool introspection on where culture is. The author is basically unsuccessful, and she's tried everything, and then she takes on a different persona and she becomes wildly successful.
Yeah.
And so it's, again, written by an Asian writer, but it's this very much a little bit like American fiction, this concept of like what is happening right now in terms of the conversation around diversity and, her really exploring both sides of that story.
I haven't been reading a lot of books because I have a little baby at home. So the only books I have been reading were a lot of children's books, and those have been page turners. But this big series.
What is the one parenting book that Rushi recommends?
Okay, here we go. There's this huge series of books called Baby University by Chris Ferry, and he breaks down like all these complex subjects like astrophysics, Newtonian physics, Bayesian probability, rocket science, evolution, all these amazing like subjects into easy understandable information like blockchain. It's dope. It's
blockchain for babies.
Blockchain for babies.
Okay.
And I have to say, I have learned quite a bit about all of these very complex subjects.
Tell us the name of the book again.
It's Baby University by Chris Ferry.
Yes, for all you parents out here, you heard it first from Rushi.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your stories and what you're looking forward to kind of building. I know that there's a lot of things that you have in the works and characters specifically. I always find when you and I talk, the characters that you pick to be super interesting. What is that for you when you're trying to decide a character that you want to spend time on developing?
Yeah, I think this past 6 or 7, 8 months, look, 40 years that we spent in the strike, it feels like it. I've acquired some rights to some projects, and the thing that I'm gravitating towards is these complex characters who are damaged and broken, and they're trying to find their way out. And in these different worlds of, I have one script that it's about the first South Asian boxer, and he is competing for his title. And it all the trials and tribulations that go into it, and the stories about him, the person he has to become to get to that next level. And I don't think people realize that success is not free. It's, you have to sacrifice something to get there. And that's something this character does, and that's something that gravitated me toward this story, and I've been just obsessed with it.
You know, there's one female, Charlie, will you look up her name? There's one female South Asian boxer out there who's like an MMA fighter. She's been on all these reality shows.
That's dope.
We'll have to hook you up with her. You have to, because I think seeing more characters like that and individuals like that doing different things is so important for us kind of making sure that we've created a world where everyone feels great embodying the character that is them.
And also, I think in American television and film, you never see a South Asian man in this South Asian man or woman in this playing this type of role. So that's a first, and that's gonna make, I think, a lot of it's gonna hopefully get out there and get the word of mouth going.
I love that you're creating characters that are outside the box. Did we get her name by chance?
We did. There are two actually.
Ooh.
We've got Nikat Zareen and Lovelina Borgohain.
Wow.
Kat Zareen and Lovelina Borgohain.
I love that. We got some character studies that we can take on. Okay, guys. Let's talk about what is coming up. What are you looking forward to that you've watched a trailer for, been excited about, and why?
Okay. I think you sent me this trailer. It's for a movie called Monkey Man.
Yeah! Monkey Man!
It's written and directed by Dev Patel and produced by Jordan Peele. I think I watched this trailer, like, no joke, like probably like 15 times.
I'm so glad I could bring you that much joy.
I have never watched a trailer.
I saw this trailer, guys, and the first thing I thought was like, Rushi has to see this immediately because it's a movie that's we're working on something, but also this. No. I mean the character. That's
because this character is so freaking complex of him, coming from nothing, and he has to infiltrate this underworld and get revenge for his mother. And what he has to go through and what he has to sacrifice to get there. And also, I think the action sequences in this movie are like fucking sick.
Yeah. It's got this great web that they've woven through Hindu mythology.
Yeah.
Specifically references to Hanuman,
right.
From what we can tell in the trailer and what we've read about it. And he seems to have done it in a way that's just a straight action film.
Yeah. It's got like, John Wick-esque action,
Yeah.
like the Russo brothers style cinematography and directing. And
Yep.
I'm like, yo, I cannot wait to go watch this movie.
Good on Dev. This is very exciting. Absolutely. I think for me, up and coming, what can I not wait for? Ooh, that's so hard. I have a musical theater background, and I actually, this coming weekend, I'm going to see Mean Girls. But by the time this comes out, I'm sure I'll have lots to say about it. But I love that we're seeing this reemergence of multi-formats on big screen. Specifically, we've had so many more of these big, musical or comedy driven, eventized kind of movies that that play homage to a stage. And like, I know you spent time on stage, like stage and that old like version of entertainment. Yeah. And I love that there's a whole new generation that's really embracing it. I think I was a little worried. I was like, what if we stop loving
theater,
theater and those musicals and those dance numbers, but we've seen tap integrated into things like Spirited in the last couple of years. We've seen RRR and their big dance numbers. The Archies remake was really cool for a crossover. And I love that these formats are coming back, right? Where we have like dance and song and great music and great acting all in one package. That's like what So I'm really looking forward to watching that.
It's just a big old spectacle.
Yeah, it is a big old spectacle. Okay, so at the end of each series, I like to do a character study on our storyteller.
Okay.
And so I'm going to ask you a list of rapid fire questions.
Okay.
And you're going to respond to them.
Okay.
And we're going to find out a little bit more about Rushi as a storyteller.
All right.
Rushi, when I say the word home, what do you think of?
Baby.
Baby. New fathers. When I say the word heaven, what do you think of?
Light. Like a lot of white light.
What about the word hell?
Hell. A song that's playing over and over and over, like it's in repeat.
What food do you find most comforting?
Right now, I would say I've been making a lot of curry chicken.
What does curry chicken mean to you?
Curry chicken just means home to me, and I think
make me hungry.
Yeah, there's just something that's just so very comforting and warm. And I've been making a lot of that, and I'm like, trying to been perfecting my recipe for it.
I love that. I'm coming over.
Yeah.
Okay, what sound makes you smile?
Cha-ching.
That's a dumb money character coming out of you.
Yeah.
How do you define love?
I think, how do I define love? There's so many different ways.
First thing that comes to mind.
I think there's, as just physicality, I think just physically embracing. I've been getting a lot of cuddles from little baby boy, and I'm like, man, he just loves me. And so I've been feeling a lot of that. Yeah.
How do you define success?
That's a tough one. I have to say finances, money is, I think that's just something that's rooted in our culture of, all the parents are like, you got to go get a good job, and you got to go settle, and you got to go do this, and you have to have this much money. And I'm like, yeah, if you have that, I feel like there's a level of success that can be like, all right, I can relax and I can do the things that I really love.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about failure?
Oh, God, just having nothing going on. Like just sitting at home and having absolutely nothing going on. I think just coming home and I'm like, all right, nothing's going on. I'm just going to drink a beer and watch TV, and then, wake up tomorrow and do the same thing over again.
Yeah, I get that. Do you define or do you believe in magic?
I do. I do.
Second chances?
Yes.
Love at first sight.
Yes.
Without considering time, ability, or money as an obstacle,
Okay.
what is one thing you've always wanted to do or learn?
I always wanted to be a Formula One racer. Nothing was standing in my way, I would love to do that.
I see a character coming out there. Who would you like to create a story with or for in the future?
I really like to do something with Ryan Reynolds.
Okay.
Or Idris Elba.
I love that.
Yeah.
What word best describes you as a storyteller?
Big.
Rushi, what inspires or drives you?
Just I'm trying to think. I just think like trying to make it. I want to make it, and there's no way I'm gonna ever stop. Like failure is not an option. So there's only one way for me to go, and that's the way I'm gonna go. I think it's the Aries in me that's just like stubborn as hell.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. What do you mean by making it big? How do you define that?
I think first having your finances in order, and then having projects lined up that where, I don't have to worry about where my next job is. I can just really focus on the work. Like a lot of big successful actors in town who are just going from project to project to project. That to me looks like it's making it big. They have made it. They are it. Yeah.
For me, making it big is just making my mom proud. You've never tried to make my mom proud.
Yeah.
If you try to make my mom proud, you know what making it big feels like.
Yeah.
I love you,
I'm
Mom.
on TV.
I love you.
Yeah.
I love you. What's your favorite story?
My favorite story is about, I think, like an underdog, a hero's journey. Because it's so relatable, and you always want to see the little guy coming up and making it big, and then paving the road for everyone else. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us
Thank
today.
you so much for having me.
We appreciate you. And guys, that is Insider's Breakdown. We will see you in our next episode.